You're listening to This Week in Big Sky Football, a comprehensive look at all this week's action in Big Sky Football. Now here's your host, Scott Garrard.
Welcome on in. It's week number 2 here on This Week in Big Sky Football. I'm Scott Garrard. Several key non-conference wins for the Big Sky last weekend, as well as a few close misses as well. We'll break it down over the next 30 minutes. Big show on tap for you today. Montana coach Bob Stitt will join us. Also, Southern Utah quarterback Patrick Tyler. And we'll wrap things up with a great conversation with Craig Haley from Stats. Also, we'll recap the week's Root Sports Players of the Week. But let's get to that recap on what was another impressive weekend in Big Sky football. Montana, how about this? An upset road win over third-ranked Northern Iowa, 20-14. Punt returner Jerry Louis McGee with an 81-yard punt return in that game as the Grizz climbed in the national rankings after that one. Montana coach Bob Stitt will join us here in just a moment. Northern Colorado with a 55-52 road victory over Abilene Christian. Backup quarterback Kyle Slaughter throwing for 408 yards and 6 touchdowns. Also rushed for a score. Bears now 2-0 on the season. Montana State earns a 27-24 victory over Bryant in Coach Jeff Choate's home debut. Bobcats defensive back John Walker with 2 big interceptions in that game. Defending Big Sky champ Southern Utah with a win over Southeastern Louisiana, 28-23. Patrick Tyler throwing for multiple touchdowns in the game. Thunderbirds moved to 1-1, going to a bye week before hosting Portland State in their conference opener. Cal Poly knocks off in-state rival San Diego 38-16. Mustangs go on a 28-3 scoring run as Patrick Joe Prothero rushing for 131 yards and a pair of touchdowns. UC Davis also a winner over Southern Oregon 52-35. Aggie quarterback Ben Scott throwing for a career-high 381 yards and 4 touchdowns. Eastern Washington fell in overtime to North Dakota State 50-44. Crazy game. Cooper Kupp with 2 more touchdown scores to become the all-time leader in touchdowns scored in Division I football, whether FBS or FCS. However, he would leave the game in the second half with a shoulder injury as the Eagles fall in a heartbreaker. Speaking of heartbreakers, Weber State falling in double overtime to South Dakota 52-49. Wildcats had a 21-point lead in the fourth quarter before losing that game on the road. And Bowling Green surviving an upset bid from North Dakota. Fighting Hawks fell 27-26. A late UND touchdown gave the Hawks a chance, but a failed 2-point conversion attempt cost North Dakota another FBS upset. Western Illinois knocking off Northern Arizona 34-20. The Lumberjacks fall to 0-2 on the season. And Portland State stumbling in the Bay Area. They lose to San Jose State 66-35. 2 teams were tied at 14 all in the second quarter before the Spartans eventually ended up taking over in that ball game. And Fresno State with the big victory over Sacramento State 31-3. And finally, Colorado knocks off Idaho State. Final score there 56-7. All right, let's go out to the phones. Welcome in the head coach of the top 10, 2-0 Montana Grizzlies, the author of Stitt Happens. It's Montana coach Bob Stitt. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing good. Good morning.
Good morning. Always fun to catch up with you. Let's start with that Northern Iowa win. I think a lot of people may have discounted your chances in that one. What did you see on film, and what jumped out at you that felt like, your team has a really good chance of going in there and getting a win?
Well, I think the difference was our off-season program, that physically we felt like that we could go toe-to-toe with somebody in the Missouri Valley Conference, and we were very disappointed with the way that we played in Fargo in the playoffs, and it was just a physical mismatch. We were just outmatched in that game and put a lot of work in the off-season, so we were excited to go back on the road because we had such a bad taste in our mouth coming out of the playoffs, and it was great to see our kids go out there, play with a lot of confidence in a very hostile environment, and it shows how far our program has come as far as team chemistry to be able to go on the road and play that way.
I really liked how in the offseason you kept talking about we got to get Montana back to being Montana, being the big dog with big wins and the mystique around the program. Are these the kind of wins that help get you back to that plateau?
Definitely, it was very Montana, and to go into any place on the road and the kids play with a lot of swagger. It really truly felt like we were at home throughout the game. The crowd didn't affect our players at all. They had total focus, and just really, really pleased how our kids reacted to that type of environment.
Big Sky Conference, John Oglesby did these camp reports, and I thought it was really impressive in watching the Montana one where it felt like everything was just more comfortable. Everybody was just kind of at ease in Montana and were dialed in. Did you feel like you had that from your players leading into this season?
Definitely. When you take over a program, it's tough on the kids. It's tough on the coaches. Everything. It's a transition year, and you're trying to instill your program, and there's nothing, right or wrong about any way of doing it. And the previous coaching staff's going to do it one way, and we're going to do it another way. And it's just hard for the team. And we've got everything right the way that I want it now, and the players understand us and our expectations. As a Grizz football player, I've got the coaching staff right. Everybody's on the same page, and we feel like we're moving forward, and we felt like we're spinning our wheels a little bit last year.
Redshirt freshman punt returner Jerry Lewis McGee, the kid looks like a star in the making, Coach. Did you see this kind of impact right away from this young man?
Well, in spring ball, nobody could tackle him, and it was pretty exciting. And we felt like we had some good players on defense, and he made a lot of our guys look silly. And then it happened again in fall camp, and we were talking as coaches, we can't wait to see him line up against somebody else. And first week nobody could tackle him, and second week nobody could tackle him. So I hope there's a trend there.
Obviously, you have a week off before the conference opener against Cal Poly on Root Sports. Facing that triple option, is it good to have that week off to kind of prepare for an offense that not a lot of people run these days?
Definitely. It's a little bit good because we had to face the option against Northern Iowa, not exactly like what Cal Poly will be like, but they're a very good football team defensively and offensively, and their offense is so different. So, we're going to take it easier on our guys this week. We are going to practice 3 times, but we're gonna pull back, and we're going to get our scout teams ready to go. We need to get our scout teams running their stuff very efficiently, so when we do roll on Tuesday, our defense is getting a great look, and our offense too. We stumbled last year as an offense, playing very well in the first game against North Dakota State, and then we come out and don't do anything against Cal Poly's defense. So get those scout teams ready so we can have a great week of practice next week.
No doubt. Well, Coach, always a pleasure to catch up with you. Congratulations on the start to the season. Keep it rolling, and we look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. That's the head coach of the Montana Grizzlies, Bob Stitt, here on This Week in Big Sky Football. Take a quick break, come back, and you will hear from Southern Utah quarterback Patrick Tyler. We'll also review last week's Root Sports Players of the Week. It's all straight ahead. You're locked into another edition of This Week in Big Sky Football.
NCAA Division I FCS football is a game of perseverance, integrity, passion, character, and sportsmanship. As he works to honor the game, every FCS student-athlete grows in his responsibilities as a student and as a member of his campus and community. Dedicated to personal growth and success in the classroom, the NCAA Division I FCS, every down, every day.
We play to win, but it's bigger than winning. It's about authenticity, being true to yourself, genuine dreams and a country big enough to fit them, values and hard work, giving your best and giving back, working together, building a tradition bigger than any one of us, and showing the world every day who we are and how we play. We're Big Sky. We are the heart of the American West.
Welcome back to This Week in Big Sky Football.
Segment number 2 here on This Week in Big Sky Football. I'm Scott Garrard. Big thanks to Austin Horton, who puts the show together every single week. We got Southern Utah quarterback Patrick Tyler coming up here in just a moment. But first, let's get to your Root Sports Players of the Week. First off, Northern Colorado quarterback Kyle Slaughter is your Root Sports Big Sky Offensive Player of the Week. No big deal, 408 yards, 6 touchdowns, leading the Bears to a 55-52 victory over and picking up that big win there. Slaughter also earning National Offensive Player of the Week honors. Montana State defensive back John Walker, your Root Sports Big Sky Defensive Player of the Week. 2 critical red zone interceptions helping Montana State to that narrow victory over Bryant. Final score there, 27-24. And finally, Montana's Jerry Louis McGee is your Root Sports Big Sky Special Teams Player of the Week. An 81-yard punt return for a touchdown as the Grizz pick up that 20-14 victory over number 3 Northern Iowa. Root Sports is your official television partner of the Big Sky Conference. First Big Sky matchup of the 2016 season Coming up on September 24th, Montana travels to Southern California to take on Cal Poly. All right, let's go out to the phones. Welcome in Southern Utah quarterback Patrick Tyler. Patrick, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good.
Hey, first off, getting a win in your first start as a Thunderbird can't ask for more than that. That was an impressive victory.
Yes, definitely. It felt great.
Let's talk a little bit about it. Going into that game, did you feel confident you'd be able to go out there and play well?
Yeah, definitely. I felt really confident. My guys they showed a lot of confidence in me going into the week, and they definitely had my back.
What was it like getting that call and finding out that you were going to be the starter going into this game?
It felt real great. It just showed like a lot of trust, and the coaches believing in me coming from third string and having that confidence in me going into the next game and believing I could get the job done.
Your offense was really versatile in that victory over Southeastern Louisiana. Malik Brown rushing for 146 yards. How much does that help you as a quarterback when you've got a guy that's able to produce that many yards and essentially take a little bit of a pressure off your shoulders?
It was great. It definitely opened up the pass a lot, and the line did a great job with the run and the pass, so it definitely helped a lot.
Yeah, let's give a shout-out to that offensive line because obviously they're opening up holes for the running game, and they're allowing you to have the time back there to throw the football. What makes those guys so good up front?
You know what? They put in a lot of work in the offseason, and not so many people have believed in them, but they believed in us, and themselves. We believed in them, and they got the job done.
You got some really good receivers in that offense. Brady Meeson, Mike Sharp. Describe what those guys bring to the table for your offense.
They bring a lot of energy. They both guys that played here before, so they know what they expect, and they are great leaders. And with having those type of receivers, it made it a lot easier on me with just being confident.
Seems like, too, as a quarterback, you can kind of throw it up there, and those two guys are going to find a way to get it done for you.
Yes, definitely. Especially Brady, he's shifty. He could get open, and Mike Sharp, he could go up and get the ball. So
now that you're the quarterback there, do they come up to you and like, hey, you know what? I'm going to need these many catches. I need you to throw it my way. No, I'm just joking. But what's the relationship like between you and those receivers and making sure that they get their touches?
Everybody is about the team. So for the most part, it's whatever they could do to help the team win. That's what it's all about. It's not about what one person can do one game. It's about everybody together, and that's what we always preach is we rather than just an individual. So that's great.
I like it. Tell us a little bit about your story, how you ended up playing at Southern Utah.
I'm from Compton, California. I went to high school at Santee Educational Complex. It's a newer school in L.A. Then I spent a few years out after high school. Then I went to Los Angeles Valley Community College, played a couple years there, and I really wasn't highly recruited last minute. Coach Demo had reached out to me, and it went from there.
California is a little bit different than Cedar City there in southern Utah. What's that transition been like for you?
Oh, yeah, it's totally different. It's a little quiet out here, but I actually like it a lot. It's totally different. It's a new atmosphere, so it's awesome.
I've talked to a lot of guys that have made that transition, and they say, you know what, it feels good because it's quieter, it's a little bit more relaxed, and we could just sit there and focus on football, and it ends up being good for them in their career. Do you think that might apply to you?
Definitely. That's what it's all about. You don't gotta focus. You don't gotta worry about everything else that's going on around you. You can just go to school and just focus on football.
What interests you in school? What do you think you'll end up majoring in, and what would you like to do when the playing days are done?
Nursing. As a kid, I used to always be sick and be in the hospital, and my auntie, she was a nurse, and she used to always be there to take care of me. So I think that's something that I want to do. I want to be able to give back and be able to help others out.
That's a great story. All right, so you guys have a bye week this week before you prepare for a conference home opener against Portland State. How do you approach the bye week? Do you want to rest up a little bit, maybe fine-tune some things? What's your plans for this week off?
Yeah, we're definitely going to make sure we take care of our body, but we're going to approach it as if we do have a game this week with making sure we're well prepared, because we do understand that it's a big game coming up. So we just got to stay focused and look at the ultimate goal, which is to win every week.
You guys won the conference last year. Do you feel that pressure on you this year that you need to live up to the expectations that were set from last season?
Right right now we're just taking it one game at a time, and that's the only thing we can really control is what we do now. So that's the mindset we're going into it right now.
That's a good coach answer right there. Your coach should be happy with that one. You didn't take the bait right there, and well done. Well, Patrick, we appreciate it. Congratulations on the big win in week number 2. We look forward to catching up with you again soon. Keep it rolling, my man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You got it. Patrick Tyler, Southern Utah quarterback, right here on This Week in Big Sky Football. The Thunderbirds have that bye week before a big showdown against Portland State. All right, we'll take a quick break, come back with Stats Craig Haley, as we will not only outline the Big Sky Conference, we'll take a look around the country, what else is brewing around FCS football. It's all straight ahead in segment number 3 here in This Week in Big Sky Football.
We play to win, but it's bigger than winning. It's about authenticity, being true to yourself, genuine dreams and a country big enough to fit them, values and hard work, giving your best and giving back, working together, building a tradition bigger than any one of us, and showing the world every day who we are and how we play. We're Big Sky. We are the heart of the American West.
NCAA Division I FCS football is a game of perseverance, integrity, passion, character, and sportsmanship. As he works to honor the game, every FCS student-athlete grows in his responsibilities as a student and as a member of his campus and community. Dedicated to personal growth and success in the classroom, the NCAA Division I FCS, every down, every day.
Welcome back to This Week in Big Sky Football.
Final segment of the show. You're listening to another edition of This Week in Big Sky Football. Here in a moment, we're going to catch up with Stats Craig Haley, who is the knower of all when it comes to FCS football. First, let's review take a look at the upcoming schedule for the games this week. UC Davis will be at Wyoming. That game with a 2 p.m. Mountain kickoff on the Mountain West Network. Also, Northern Colorado takes on Colorado State. 2 p.m. Mountain kickoff. That game is on Root Sports Rocky Mountain. Western Oregon will travel to play the Montana State Bobcats. Got a 2 o'clock kickoff at Cal's Media, as well as Altitude outside of the state of Montana. Game can also be streamed on MSU Bobcats All Access. Idaho State on their way to Corvallis to take on Oregon State and the Beavers. That game at 2 p.m. Pacific kickoff on the Pac-12 Network. North Dakota hosting regional rivals South Dakota at 4 p.m. Central on Midco Sports Network, as well as WatchBigSky.com. Northern Arizona has its first game of the season as they host New Mexico Highlands, 4 p.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Arizona, as well as always, you can catch that game on WatchBigSky.com. Cal Poly will take on South Dakota State. That game is at 6 p.m. Central and is available on Midco Sports Network as well as on ESPN3. Big one here. You're going to want to watch this one. Eastern Washington hosts Northern Iowa. Eagles and Panthers will clash at 4 p.m. Pacific. You can watch that game on SWX as well as WatchBigSky.com. Portland State Vikings travel to play Pac-12 Washington, 5 p.m. kickoff on the Pac-12 Network. And finally, a non-conference game between Big Sky opponents. Weber State hosts Sacramento State, 6 p.m. Mountain. You can catch that game on KJazz in Utah, as well as WatchBigSky.com. Root Sports, of course, your official television partner of the Big Sky Conference. First Big Sky game on Root Sports coming up on September 24th. That's when Montana travels to take on Cal Poly. All right, time to go out to the phones. Welcome in the man, the myth, the legend. You know him. You love him. Craig Haley joins the program. Craig, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Scott. How are you?
I just keep trying to add to the intro every week. Before too long, your whole segment will just be me talking about how great you are.
Well, the check is in the mail to you.
You got it. First off, let's talk about some of the games in week number 2. From the excitement level, from the drama level, how did week 2 compare to week number 1?
Well, they've both been fun weeks, but yeah, that was a great weekend last weekend. Obviously, you know, the Big Sky went 1-3 against the Missouri Valley, but you almost have to call it a push. I mean, for Eastern Washington to go in and force overtime against the 5-time defending champs is just tremendous. Plus the Big Sky playing on the road in each of those matchups. And you know, some of the other teams had great wins too. I mean, Northern Colorado, Southern Utah, you know, North Dakota within a point of Bowling Green. That's just a great weekend. It's not always judged on wins and losses in my mind. And the Big Sky really held its own this past weekend.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So let's go through some of these individual games. Montana gets the win over Northern Iowa. How big a game was that for the Grizz, and how big was that for the Big Sky Conference?
Well, it was tremendous. I thought Montana had a chance to go in and just drive them crazy with the pass, and they, won in a different way. I mean, not a huge game for Brady Gustafson. Obviously some defense, kicking the special teams, kicking field goals, the long return. It's a big win. I mean, they won in a different way. You think offense with Bob Stitt, so they're a very good team. I actually had predicted Montana to go there and win, and glad to see they played well.
We talked to Bob Stitt in our first segment, and he brought up an interesting point about how he wanted Montana to get back to being Montana, just the big, bad bullies that they don't care where they're playing or who they're playing. They're going to go toe-to-toe with them. Do you feel like that mystique is starting to seep back in with the Grizz?
I think so. I've always said when you're at a Montana game, watch them in the pregame, when they're spread out on the field warming up. You really sense this is a power program, one of the elites in all of FCS. I do think so. I thought they had tremendous wins last year, the Grizzlies. I think they're on the rise, right there for the conference title this year. So they should have a tremendous season.
It's interesting, and I think you mentioned this as well. When you look at a team like Eastern Washington, do you actually look at them in higher regard, even in a loss, albeit an overtime loss to North Dakota State?
Well, yes. Let's put it this way. I had questions about them going into the year, mainly because of replacing the entire offensive line, but they've sold me. I actually moved them up to number 4 on my ballot this week in the stats top 25, because I think you play a schedule like they're playing and you play well, a victory over Washington State and to go toe-to-toe with NDSU, I think they've risen. They should be rising in everybody's minds.
I was going to ask you this a little later, but you mentioned Eastern's your 4th-ranked team. Give me your top 4, your top 5. How do you have those teams ranked?
Well, I mean, it is a pretty consistent group. I mean, it starts with North Dakota State. I'd say Richmond has still earned the number 2 spot. But then you have, Sam Houston, Eastern Washington, Jacksonville State. I think Northern Iowa is still up there. I mean, you have to put them behind Montana. I mean, that's 7 teams right there. Those are the ones you got to look at right now.
How much could the 1 and 3? I mean, and you mentioned the push with Eastern and North Dakota State, but is that 1 and 3 when the committee gets together and they're trying to figure out at the end of the season where to put these teams and who gets in? Could this 1 and 3 weekend hurt a little bit, or is it just too early and to even project that far ahead?
Well, it can hurt in the sense that the Big Sky has so many teams that are going to be candidates at that time of the year, where you're going to have 6 or 7 teams, a couple of them that'll just their bubble or book burst. So yes, you will be able to look back and say, okay, maybe that was too tough of a schedule to endure that loss. But I do think the committee changed its stance last year by putting Western Illinois in as a 6-5 team, the first 6-5 at-large bid that they've given. So I think, yes, the strength of schedule is important. I think conferences like the Big Sky want to continue to play these big games. It may hurt somebody, but it's also going to benefit somebody.
Story over the weekend, and it's been kind of here. We taped this out of Salt Lake City, so we're close to Weber State. And obviously, Jay Hill's a good friend of a lot of ours. His wife is dealing with Hodgkin's lymphoma. John Oglesby had a nice story on BigSkyConf.com talking about a group of North Dakota fans raising money to benefit Sarah Hill, Jay Hill's wife. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on this story and just the impact this may have on this Weber State team, because it's really it's not obviously a fun story because she's dealing with such a serious issue, but it's really great to see how this community up in Ogden is really rallying around their head coach and his wife.
Sure. I mean, everybody should be Sarah strong here. I mean, this is everybody's showing support for her. It's great for the Hills. It's great for Weber State to know that everybody's thinking of Sarah and their whole program. I think what South Dakota did, showing support, creating a GoFundMe page, just shows you the class people out there. It's not all about wins and losses. It turned out to be a great game, but at the same time, yes, this trumps everything. It's what life is more important than the games, and I think it's great that so many people have rallied around Sarah and Jay Hill here.
I want to take a look back a little bit, back to Eastern Washington. Cooper Kupp with that shoulder injury. Just how close are you trying to pay attention to see what the status is on that young man?
Well, to me, I mean, you think long term, it's almost scary if he plays and takes more punishment on that shoulder. You want to see a fast recovery. I think it'll be one of those last-minute decisions. I mean, he's going to push for it, Cooper, but at the same time, you won't be 100% with that kind of injury, at least initially. So I think they have to be careful and think long-term here, not just for the Northern Iowa game.
And before we let you go, Portland State with a game that I was kind of surprised that they lost that by about 30 points, 66-35 to San Jose State. Portland State, obviously, with Alex Cressa back under quarterback. Give me your thoughts on Bruce and the crew up there and what you think they'll be able to pull together this year. Well,
they obviously, lost. They don't have maybe quite the magical team that they had last year, but they're going to be in the mix here. I think Paris Penn has done well from the start. Obviously, we know what Alex Cressa can do, as you mentioned. It's rare for anybody to beat two FBS teams in a year. So for them to repeat that wasn't going to happen. They're just going to have to win tight games once they're in the conference play. It's such a close year in the league. They had great defense last year. I just think they need to keep that same style of play, run the ball, really play physical style. But I think they're in the mix. I think they may be a little bit short of what they were a year ago, but they surprised everybody last year, so there's no reason they can't be right there again.
No doubt about it. Craig, we appreciate it. Thanks for your time. We look forward to catching up with you again next week.
Thank you, Scott.
That's Stats Craig Haley here on This Week in Big Sky Football. Quickly, let's go through your schedule once again. UC Davis will be at Wyoming with a 2 p.m. Mountain kickoff. Northern Colorado takes on Colorado State. Western Oregon will travel to take on Montana State, 2 p.m. kickoff on that one. Idaho State takes on Oregon State in Corvallis. North Dakota against South Dakota. Northern Arizona plays their first game of the season against New Mexico Highlands. Also, as you look through the rest of the schedule, Cal Poly takes on South Dakota State. Eastern Washington against Northern Iowa, which should be a good one. Portland State will take on Washington, and Weber State in a big matchup against Sacramento State. That does it for us. Enjoy the week. We'll be back with you next week for another edition of This Week in Big Sky Football.